The one thing specifically that I remember, even though it was so long ago, she was like, you say this and this. Basically, it was like, you tell them the offer and then you pause. And that's exactly what she did to me. And it was this exact pause that got me.
No long intro today. Hi if you're new here, hi if you're not. I'll let the interview speak for itself. This one, to be honest, hit a little close to home. You know, a lot of this story I can definitely relate to, and I think some of you will too. Shout out to the channel members before we get started, specifically Millionaire VIPs, as well as Tom, Harrison, Suzanne, and Zerify in the Billionaire tier. If you're interested in learning how to get rich, click that join button down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you're having a good time, and let's go ahead and jump right in.
I think my backstory goes all the way back to maybe struggling in like the conventional career path, also being an artist. So just being like chronically poor. And then because of that, doing a job that I hated. And then because of that, getting an ad that was almost a decade ago, just like the classic, like selling a dream. A Facebook ad, I should mention, back in the day. I think the targeting was pretty good already then. And I don't know, at the time, I was just slowly getting flooded with these, like, the cliche coaching ads. And I think maybe because of that ad, and because I hated my day job so much and I didn't want to go back to like the arts, I was like, maybe I could become a life coach because I wanted to do something that was meaningful. I love having meaningful conversations. People come to me to just like sometimes trauma dump, sometimes have like good exchanges, like I've always had that. So like I was very young and I had no idea about the whole industry. And then I found this coach and her ad. And I was like, this sounds interesting. And I need to figure something else out in my life. I want to try something that's meaningful and also gives me the kind of lifestyle that I just need for personal reasons. So then I watched her webinar, which was behind the ad. And again, this was back in the day when nobody really knew about webinars. Like I didn't know that I was being sold to. I was like, oh, what's this? A free class? Like, wow, that's so nice. Like, it seems like a good deal, right? So I spend like an hour watching this free class and all the right things were said at all the right time. And I booked a free call from the webinar. And then it was basically just, in hindsight now, I know it was just like, I think it was an hour long of asking me questions, which I can't remember because it was so long ago. And it just ending up being like, well, I can help you with, the stuff that you always get from those sales calls. And basically the two options she gave me was either a coaching package with a course that was like $10,000 or just the course without her coaching for $1,000. And at the time I was so broke. So, but also like I felt like the whole adrenaline rush, I felt like the whole pressure, like she really hooked me really well. And also she was quite a bit older and she just had her whole narrative that she was a Wall Street professional and now she lives this amazing like location independent life, which again is something that for me personally is really important because I have family all over the world. So she just had all the right like pain points and dream, what do you even call it? Projecting? I don't know. And so I did the online course option because also like I just felt kind of pressured into it. Like I was so young, I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand like, oh, I'm actually being sold to really aggressively. I was like a baby at the time. So I did that and then I got the login and I remember just like looking at this like course and it was like a few videos and I was like, what? Like I was really confused. And the thing that made me feel really strange about all of this was, well, a few things. First of all, like, what the fuck is this course? It's just a few videos. But then also, I could tell that, like, in her videos, her breath was really shallow. Like, I felt almost stressed watching these videos. I was like, why is she so, like, tense and like almost like nervous herself. There was just something really off about her whole body language, like somebody who was extremely nervous. So just even the watching experience was kind of unpleasant. And then the last thing that really threw me off was when she basically gave you a sales script. And I realized uh, that those were all the tactics she pulled on me. And I was like, how is this ethical? Like, how is this authentic or okay? Because, like, the one thing specifically that I remember, even though it was so long ago, she was like, you say this and this. Basically, it was like, you tell them the offer and then you pause. And that's exactly what she did to me. And it was this exact pause that got me. I was like, oh shit, I can't just be quiet. Like, and then I just kind of like said yes, you know? So it's so bizarre how like she was selling all of the tactics that I just found personally very predatory. Maybe because of the age gap, because I was so naive and like inexperienced and vulnerable. So yeah.
This is super interesting because I feel like all too often we see, like, obviously, I'm aware, like, yeah, you sign up for a program and then they just show you, this is how I got you to buy. So here's how you're going to do it with your
Literally.
clients. But to have the awareness and recognize that, I feel like a lot of people don't do that. And so, like, I know we see this a lot in like MLMs, for example. You get on these like training calls and it's like, oh shit, that's how I got recruited into the MLM. But no
Yeah.
one seems to recognize that. They're just so focused on like, oh, thank you so much for teaching me this skill that now I can use it to get my own clients. And it's like, can't you
Uh,
see that this is what's happening?
yeah.
Um, I just have a couple follow-up questions. So, what was the like promise of the course? Was it that you were going to then be able to become a coach?
Yeah, it was just like get clients.
Okay. For
And it
people that don't
was
even have
and
a
I
business.
think she was actually I'm trying to remember. I think she was selling her system. So she was literally showing you what to do what she was doing, which was she wasn't even like showing you in a tech like tutorial way. She was just being like run Facebook ads to a webinar to have a sales call. Here's a script, charge them insane amount of money that people need to go in debt for, you know? Luckily, I was like, I've never been a very financially, um, I've always been a little bit, I guess, responsible in the sense that I would not fall for going into debt for something like this. But knowing that this is so common for other people just is so infuriating.
It's honestly like a little bit unsettling when I think about, and we have these conversations all the time, but where does your moral compass have to be okay with convincing people? Because you said the one offer was like $10,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm someone that's desperate enough to get out of my situation and I will pay any price to never have to go back to my dreaded 9 to 5,
Yeah.
I could see how someone would be susceptible to thinking like, well, this woman, seems like she has it all together. Let me
Totally.
just give her all my money. And I mean, we've heard that story on this channel so many times of people
Yeah.
spending upwards of 10, 20, $100,000 in these programs. And so it's mind-boggling to me. And I mean, I hear your story, I hear so many people's stories, and every time I'm just like, there's
Yeah.
no shortage of people out there trying to
Yeah.
steal your money on the internet.
I just like try to understand what would cause someone to just like turn off their moral compass. Like, are
Exactly.
they themselves so desperate to just like almost like steal money from others by being so manipulative? And, you know, yeah, it's just kind of sad.
Yeah, and that's the interesting piece too. I don't know if this is something you've noticed, but oftentimes pretty much all of these people, if you go to like their website, for example, and you read their about page, most of them have this like rags to riches story. So I was
Totally.
on food stamps, I was down to my last $50, whatever. And when I read these stories, assuming that they're true, some of them very well may not be, but let's all just have the benefit of the doubt here that these people are telling us truthful stories.
Yeah.
Um, assuming that it's true, then I can kind of put myself into this perspective of like, okay, well, if my water was going to get shut off tomorrow because I didn't have the money in my bank account, I might, do some shady things in order to be able to make that money. And so then, not to try to justify that these actions are okay, but I just like, I'm always thinking about like, what are the games you have to play with yourself in order to end up in a position where you then like normalize this kind of behavior? Because
Yeah.
obviously, then I convince you to sign up for my program. You go through it and you don't complain that you had a bad time. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, it must have been pretty good. And then I think that can kind of fuel the, well, I'll just put up these Facebook ads and keep selling and selling and selling. I'd be curious to hear. So you said this was like 10 years ago. And I mean, I think I fell for my first Facebook ad probably around 2016. So about 8 years ago. I'd be curious to hear whether if you're still getting Facebook ads like this. I know I still get all of these Facebook ads. If you've noticed a change in like what those look like or sort of the narratives that are being perpetuated now versus then, if you think it's the same, like, is that something that you've noticed?
That's a very interesting question because I don't use any Meta anymore. So I neither use Instagram nor Facebook at the moment for personal reasons because I also work in marketing now in corporate. Wow. Not as a coach. Imagine that. So I don't really have that much exposure to Meta ads for my personal, whatever data they use. But I think still actually I know that I still got ads from some other girl whose course I bought and I used to follow like years after I got her course. I would still get ads from a webinar from the same course that I bought when it was like, luckily at the time it was a fraction and it was okay. Like it was $100. I'm not going to starve. And it was an interesting insight, whatever. But I still get her ads. And now I don't get any ads because I don't have any apps on my phone. But yes, I guess I would probably still get some of their ads, but I also used to be very selective about like not interested.
Like a lot of people don't realize that if you're getting a ton of these ads, you can just click the little three dots and tell Facebook or whatever that you don't want to see it and it'll go away.
Yeah, I always did that. So I'm sure I would probably still get some.
Yeah, there seems to be no shortage, that's for sure. Sorry, I just want to come back to the story. So you take this course, it's kind of trash, for lack of a better term. What happens? Did you just like carry on? You said you purchased another course? Like what was the evolution there?
I kind of learned how to freelance for marketing. And it was a very slow transition, but basically, luckily, I realized that I'm actually not qualified to be a life coach at that stage of my life. Like, wow, I finally woke up. I had that moment. Thank God. Like, I never actually coached. I never charged money for coaching, but thank God. But what happened after that, I think actually what happens to other people too is like, I think I had this thought that I was like, okay, I invested in myself. So I'm going to try the next thing. Hopefully that's going to help. And then the other money isn't as wasted. And it's kind of like, I see that with so many other people now that the online course industry is so huge and mainstream, is I think it's almost like gambling, right? You're like, I've spent all this money. If the next thing is going to be good, then I can make back all of my lost money or I'll feel less like an idiot because there's so much shame behind it too, right? Like it's embarrassing to admit you've wasted so much money on like being kind of fooled. So I definitely went through a couple of years where whenever I had a little bit of money, I would tell myself this is an investment, even though it was like just another shit course until I can't remember what I mean, I guess I just kind of realized that it was a pattern and it was just not, you know. I was also able to discern between actual educators, luckily, because my mom is a teacher. I think that helped a lot. She's a really good teacher. And I was like, these people literally don't know how to teach me anything. Like they're just talking in videos and they're calling it a course. And I also actually did much later on create my own courses, but it was on Udemy. And at the time, like it was fair pricing. Like, it was very accessible, and I actually created courses that got good reviews from strangers on the internet. I wasn't manipulating them. Like, it was pretty organic and it was fair.
Yeah, I'm actually in the midst of working on a video that's talking about, these like certifications and how I could
Oh my
open one
God.
tomorrow and be like, come on. I actually joked on stream the other day, like, pay me $1 and I'll certify you as a life coach. Like, anyone can do it. I'd be curious to hear if you have any specific advice, I guess, for anyone who, because unfortunately, as much as we have these conversations, we share our experiences, there are people out there who have never been exposed to the coaching industry. They don't even know that this stuff is happening. And so, what advice would you have for someone who is now in the position that you were in, say, 10 years ago, comes across one of these Facebook ads, is in a miserable job, and wants to sign up for this program?
I think like the biggest red flag is emotional marketing. Like, what is their copy say? What are they using to stop you from scrolling? What are their promises? And also, this is going to sound so cliche, but like, if you start to notice that you have like maybe a little bit of like adrenaline, or you're just acting a little bit impulsive, like you really want this, just like literally pause and like take a break, and maybe just even just honestly, I think you know what I used to do, and this used to help me. When I would get these ads, I would actually click on the link because I would be intrigued, right? But then I would save that link in my notes and then tell myself, let me look at it later. And then I realized that, like, first of all, you just realize how many ads you see, and that it's just a massive, like, bullshit industry. But then also, like, I kind of like detox myself from that whole rush that they get you into with the promising copy, and then I just wouldn't be interested anymore. So I think just seeing all that in my notes app helped a lot. I think because so much of their copy is manipulative and there's all this like pain point marketing and like dream promises, people just purely act for like emotional reasons instead of actual like logic.
100%. And I think too, especially if we think about like the high pressure sales calls that they put you on, if you're someone who is like an empath or more of a people pleaser, which like I know that's the case for me, I don't know about you. I
Totally same.
remember being on some of these sales calls and like, oh my God, I don't want to disappoint this stranger, oh, that doesn't even know me and wouldn't matter anyway. But in my head, I'm like, I can't disappoint them. I guess I have to give them an answer. Like, okay, fine, here's my credit card. Like,
Literally, that's exactly what happened to me with this woman. That's exactly what happened to me. I was like, "Oh my God, I have to like she gave me all this time. Like, I guess I have to sign up." And then this other thing detail that like at the time again, I was so young and like a good piece of prey that I was feeling so under pressure on this call. She told me to give her my credit card details on the spot, on the call, which again, like now that I look back, if somebody said it to me now, I'd be like, are you insane? But that's just another like epic, huge red flag. Like, who would pressure you to give your credit card details on a call? That's wild. So huge, like urgency.
exactly. I remember even, I think this was like the second or third coach that I worked with. I actually found her through like a friend referred me to her. And I was like fully in. I was sold before we even got on the sales call. Like, I'm signing up for this program. This is amazing. And thinking back now, on the call, she similar, give me your credit card details. And I was like not at home at the moment or something. I was like out and about. So I didn't have my card with me. So I was like, oh, like I don't have it on me, but like I swear, like I'm gonna sign up. And she was like, well, can you do it through this? Can you like pay me through
Oh my
PayPal or maybe this? And that to me should have been a red flag, but I was so like ready to buy that I was like, no,
yeah.
like don't be upset. Like I promise I have the money and I'll sign up right when I get home. But it's just like, anyone listening to this, if you are told to give your credit card over the phone, over Zoom, whatever, disconnect, run away.
Seriously, run.
Oh, it's so wild now. And like we joke about it, but I just think back to, when I was 25 and I'm like, it's so interesting the perspective you can gain
Yeah.
when you're so far out of it.
Yeah, I wish I could just like go back in time and like hug myself and like
Honestly, I think about my entire experience with coaching, and I don't know if yours is similar, but I think that even though obviously like parts of the industry are so toxic and twisted, and we had presumably negative experiences, I do think that that kind of led me onto partially like the path that I'm on now, as like cliche and silly that sounds. I do think that if I hadn't have gone through that, I would probably still be working some job that I didn't necessarily like. So I am
mm,
grateful for the opportunities, or like the way that my mind was opened from having gone through my coaching experience, but I would also, have done things differently with the
that's a
hindsight
really
that I have
nice
now.
perspective. Yeah. I think it's probably the same for me. Like I've always been a very unconventional person, especially in my career. So yeah, I think I see what you mean, and it's very nice that you can have that perspective.
I guess I just am curious if there's anything else that you would share before we hop off. Any like parting words of wisdom you have for anyone who's maybe in the position you were in 10 years ago, or anything else that you think is important to share?
I think another thing maybe is if you feel too embarrassed to tell your closest people. Like definitely did not tell my parents.
I
Like
didn't tell anyone. I didn't even tell my partner until like 5 years later that I was like, "Oh, by the
yeah,
way, back in
yeah.
2016 or whatever, I spent $4,500."
Oh my god, no. That's so sad. Did you have to take up credit for that?
So my first coaching program I paid for on a line of credit.
Oh
Um,
no.
I was able to pay it off like within a year, so it was
Yeah.
fine, but it's just like, Danielle, what are you
That's
doing?
yeah. I think yeah, that's a really big red flag. If you're excited about something you're buying, you should like want to show like if you're buying a cute shirt, of course you're going to show everyone. So why would it be different with like an actual education or like a training or something?
Or yeah, like I went back to school during the pandemic and I got a post grad in mental health intervention, and I would talk to people about that. Like, "Hey guys, I'm in school to get this certificate, whereas like I'm
Yeah.
in this coaching program. Don't look at me."
Exactly. Like why are you embarrassed? That's the whole point.
I've actually never thought of that. That's such a good point.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. But honestly, I'm really grateful to talk to you about this because I think it's quite healing to just remove all of the shame and like just, admitting that you were younger and you were most of all vulnerable. Like,
Exactly.
I think so many people are embarrassed, but like literally don't be because they know what they're doing. I don't want to do them versus us, but like people who use manipulative tactics know what they're doing, and it's literally not your fault. Like they probably just know how to get to your pain points. Like for me, I was so desperate to make decent money for the first time in my life. I had never made decent money at the time. I didn't know how, so I was just perfect for that.
Exactly. And like the system is designed in a way where, like we were talking about, you get this Facebook ad. Okay, it's intriguing. Then you sit in this webinar. This lady knows what I'm talking about. Then maybe she's sending you a couple emails and you're like, damn,
Yeah.
she's speaking to my soul. And so it's like you get brainwashed, for lack of a better term, so quickly, again, because you're in this vulnerable position, you don't even have time. Cause like a lot of the times I'll get comments being like, well, you have to be an idiot to fall for this. It's like, no, you don't even
No.
have the opportunity to practice due diligence and to ask questions because you're so focused on solving this problem that you're facing. And this, Sally Smith is telling you, I was you, and now I'm so rich and having a great time. So pay me and I'll teach you how to
Yeah.
do it too. That it's so easy to be like, oh, well, she must, like, why would she be lying to me? I want
Yeah.
to believe everyone is good, right?
Exactly. We want to believe that people are nice and that they want to help us.
Especially when you yourself come from good intentions. Like you said at the
Yeah.
beginning, I just wanted a job that was meaningful where I could help people. So my assumption is when I find this woman who's telling me that that's what she's done, why would I think she's lying? Especially again when you're, 23, 24, 25, and you don't have the life experience behind you to understand that maybe not everyone is as nice as they seem.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like
Now
a
I'm
hard
32 and jaded, so
same. I'm so jaded in my 30s, but it's okay. We learned.
thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for making these videos, and also like the community is just really fun. I love that we can all just laugh about our past mistakes.
That's what it is. We're just here for the good vibes, you know. If
Yeah.
anything, if I didn't get anything out of my coaching experience, at least I can make a few jokes about it now.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much.
I want to give a big thank you to this interviewee for coming on and sharing her story. If you have a coaching story that you would like to share here on the channel, the form to submit your story, how many times can I say story in one sentence, is linked in the description down below. Come hang out with us on the Danielle Ryan subreddit if you haven't already. Give this video a big thumbs up. Unless you hated it, thumbs down is fine too. Let me know what content you want to see next. That's going to be it for today's video. I'm going to leave you on screen here with one of the OG interviews here on this channel. In case you're new here, take care, comb your hair, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!